All right, so welcome to the Arete Podcast. I'm Grant Allen. I'm your host, and I am the CEO of Arete Sports Performance. I'd like to welcome my guest here this week. His name is Jake Hicks. He is a performance specialist down at EXOS, which is a global sports performance company based out of Arizona. And him and I were actually roommates a few years ago when I interned down at EXOS in Texas. And so Jake and I kind of go way back, and he is going to be a fantastic guest for us today. So just a precursor as well, make sure that, we're finishing up here. If you're a part of the metabolic reset, tomorrow's the last day. So make sure you're getting in your pictures and make sure that you get in your weights so you can be qualified for the grand prize. So with that, we're going to go ahead and go over to Jake. Jake, how you doing?
Doing great. Just finished full day of coaching. So
Good stuff. Good stuff. So first off, Jake, I did want to let everybody know that you are the loudest snorer that I've ever been around in my entire life.
good.
We shared a room at EXOS, and I don't think I slept the entire summer, but luckily I learned a ton from you. And so that's why I'm excited to have you on the podcast. And just a precursor for you, this podcast is meant mainly for meeting a ton of people who are leaders in their own right, in their own field, people who have had a lot of success in their field and who are big leaders and influencers in their own field. And so when I look at you and what you've done over the past few years, ever since you really started, ever since we met, you're a major figure in the sports performance field. So do you kind of just want to give us a background, where you're from, and kind of where you're at now?
Yeah, so I'm from Pensacola, Florida. I played baseball my whole life. I was very competitive. My dad was a first rounder in 1978. So baseball's in my blood. I played, through high school. Obviously, we won a state title in high school, and then went on to play in college at University of Florida. I was a grad assistant coach at Valdosta State. And baseball for me completely was done in 2013. I took my first internship with EXOS in 2013. Prior to grad school, that was grad school. Between undergrad and grad school, I worked for the Andrews Institute in Gulf Breeze, Florida. And that's where I kind of came across somebody mentioned something about athletes' performance. And if you're familiar with EXOS, before they were EXOS, they were Athletes Performance. So there was a facility partnered with the Andrews Institute in Gulf Breeze, Florida. On a couple days I had time, I would go over and volunteer. I've told this story like 100 times, but my first day I see Matt Stafford, Deuce McAllister, Roy Jones Jr., and I'm just kind of looking around, not understanding what's going on, because I was at a top university and, I heard this guy, his name's Anthony Hobgood. And then, to this day, he's still the best coach I've been next to. And you don't know about him because he doesn't have Instagram, he doesn't have social media, but he's very, very good teacher. He's got a loud voice. He knows what he's talking about, and he cares about people. And that's probably the biggest thing that, is when you're around him, you feel that he really cares about the people he's working with. So he's talking about increasing sprint speed, and he used the analogy using, Newton's 3 laws. And I'm thinking to myself, you got to be kidding, because, in college, I've always been big in training. I'll get into that in a second, but nobody ever taught me just the fundamentals of anything. Nobody taught me, how you run faster. That's a stupid question, and it's got a really simple answer, but every time I ask, nobody really has that answer. And since I learned that answer, it's simple things like that I try to make sure that everybody I come across learns. And, I'm thinking to myself, I got to know more about this place. I got to know more what these coaches, where they came from, how they got here. So, I started volunteering. I talked to Anthony quite a bit. I talked to another guy named Brett Bartholomew quite a bit, and just said, hey, do you have masters, this and that. Brett gave me an advice, and this is what I took. He said, you can go and get a master's. You need higher education, and you need more experience. And a master's degree, a grad assistantship gets you both. So he actually suggested that I get a master's in education. And his pitch was, if you want to be an effective coach, you need to be an effective teacher. And, everybody's got exercise science. That's good. But you can learn many things. I think, my biggest thing from grad school, my biggest takeaway was learning to be an effective teacher, learning different methods on how people learn, and then using that and knowing, different and effective ways to teach. And that's pretty much, what I put my grad school, my 2 years in, and I based that around motor learning or, strength condition, whatever. But, I took that advice, and in grad school, I worked with the baseball team predominantly. I volunteered as much as I can, put some time in the weight room. And, I taught some fitness classes. I taught about, anywhere from 4 to, I think one semester I taught 6 or 7 undergraduate classes.
Wow.
Anywhere from walking to, what was that? Circuit training to fitness. There was, different. And in fact, I took my internship with EXOS in summer of 2013. Shout out to all those interns. That was the best intern group to date. And there's no doubt about it. But after that internship, I came back, and I think I had like a big undergraduate class load. And there was some curriculum in these fitness classes, but it was pretty open. And I came back that fall, and I taught everybody EXOS methodology. I taught everybody how to move. I taught them about pillar prep, movement prep. I'm a big advocate of EXOS. I believe their systems, and always have been, always will be. I appreciate the opportunities that they've provided, the platform, and just the reach they have, and the innovation that the company has in the field. And, I had my first, actually turned down a paid job, took a free job, and worked in 2014, Gulf Breeze, with an NFL combine group. And that was a great experience to go through that. Working with, I think we had 34, a few first rounders and 11 second rounders. It was a great experience, learned some specificity around, 40s, 5-10-5, L drill, ways to break down different drills to be better at certain tests. And that was a great experience. Took another opportunity to Frisco, Texas, EXOS in Frisco. That's where you and I met. And, I was the intern dad. And
yes, the best intern dad. It was great. I was so terrified of you when I first met you. I was like, oh my God, dude, like this guy is not going to be cool at all. And then we became really good friends because you figured out that I was really good at impressions. Yeah. And, and the rest is history. We've been friends ever since.
I don't have that recording anymore, but to this day, I tell people about this guy I know named Grant that has Herbert the pervert.
Yes.
Better than himself.
Better than the actual one. Yep. Really. Yeah, it's something I put on my resume to this day. So
you should be paid.
Yeah. Yeah. So then after Frisco, where did you go?
So after Frisco, I was in Frisco for about 2 years, right at 2 years, and I've been in Oklahoma City for right at coming up on 3 years. So I was performance specialist in Frisco, intern dad. I've always worked with interns. It's been a great learning experience, and I love the ability to teach others. So that's been a valuable experience. And then, I've been manager here for since January. So work, different leadership roles and more opportunities. And that's where I'm at now. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. And then do you want to quickly talk about just some of the athletes that you work with on a daily basis? I know we talked a little bit about it right before the podcast, but if you want to kind of just tell the audience a little bit about kind of your day-to-day, the athletes that you're working with, and kind of the broad spectrum really that you have. You really have, as you know, as young as, like you were saying earlier, youth all the way up to professional. So just kind of touch on that. And then how do you, you know, I already know the answer, but for the audience, how do you train somebody who's youth compared to NFL or NBA or MLS, or, you know, all, you know, basically from beginner to ultimate professional to general fitness, and how do you bridge that gap? What do you do anything different? How do you train them differently?
Yeah. So my day-to-day is pretty in a good way, hectic. It's controlled chaos. I've got a team, you know, myself, sports dietitian, 2 full-time coaches, and, you know, team of 4. I've got an asset manager. And as a team, we basically, you know, in this environment have created and developed a business line of, you know, like you said, from adult population, professional athletes, youth, high school teams. We do team service agreements, and we work with, you know, consulting. I've even done some long distance coaching, anything to facilitate the needs of the community. We've done football camps, work with FCA, work with organizations. And the goal is to give back and be there for the community in the sports medicine field, and provide a strong representation for the hospital and add value to, you know, our services and, you know, what we can do for the surrounding community. So, you know, to answer the question on how do we train different populations, we have a system, and you know this, but the great thing about a system is the system's the skeleton, and we have methods that fit in. So the same system across the board, for the most part, and the methods might be the most different. So, you know, when I'm working with a youth group, I work with a youth group today. 3 of the kids have never done anything. One of them's 9 years old, 2 10-year-olds. And the goal is always the same. You have to look at everything as a skill. And our system is set up to teach skills, both movement and movement patterns. And, you know, the methods, I have go-to methods, you know, modifications. And basically the goal is to make them be successful. We do some stuff. We'll go to the board. I will, you know, write on the wall 3. Like today, we went through 3 points that I want to work on whenever I'm working on landing mechanics. You know, we've got plyometrics. We do speed and agility and strength training, all the above. And we try to provide the education with it so that we don't feel like we're just going through the motion. We want to provide the education. So the system from education standpoint is the same. It might be applied differently depending on the population. But, you know, the objective is the same, and it is to improve the movement patterns, and proprioception, ability to absorb and produce forces, and, you know, adapt to, you know, unique situations. So a lot of times, you know, in the adult population, that gets simplified because for them, it's all about manipulating their heart rate, move around. It's all movement based. We don't use machines. You know, we're not jumping on a leg extension. We're teaching, you know, lunge variations, squat variations, and those doses might come at different doses than youth and high school. And for the most part, it's more, you know, focused on, you know, getting them moving, keeping them going. It's not as specific to anything. It's very general. And, you know, professional athletes, they all have very specific reasons and agendas. Whether, you know, we got professional hockey, we've got collegiate quarterback, you know, collegiate soccer, collegiate baseball. So, you know, when we're working with the college athletes, it's aligning things up when they get back. If they have tests they have to complete, we want to prepare them for that test. So it's case by case, but the system's going to be the same as far as outlining what 60 or 90 minutes look like, and then the methods inside the system is going to be different case by case. So high school group, same thing. We've got multi-sport athletes. Some days I'll have groups of 20. It's not the biggest space, and we don't need the biggest space, and it's very simplistic, and there's a plan involved in everything we do, and the goal is to guide and take these guys through a program that's at the end it's going to create objective progress. So that's always a big goal, either youth or professional, anybody. I'd like to make it as objective as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's what, I think when we talked about this last week, when I asked you if you wanted to be on, was I think as a whole, the field of strength conditioning and the field of fitness has become very saturated, and it's become very saturated in the sense of there's a lot of kind of crap in the space, where there's a lot of people trying to come up with their own thing to be really original, when really it's very simple science, it's very simple movements. And a lot of the times when people, this is my opinion, a lot of the times when people try to get too complicated or come up with their own movement or some crazy thing that's like this long on a piece of paper, it's very, one, confusing to the athlete or individual, and two, the stimulus isn't high enough for it to really be a movement that's worth it. And so the thing that I really appreciate that you taught me the most, and something that I've continued to learn from you throughout the years, is you've always kept it very simple. And so do you want to kind of speak on that real quick? I know that's not something that I had sent you before, but I think that it's such a lost art, is simple physics. It's totally simple physics, right? I mean, it's literally the only thing that hasn't changed with strength conditioning since the beginning of time has been the weight of the barbell and simple physics. And like you were talking about a little bit earlier, Newton's 3 laws. And so if you want to touch on that, I think that would be awesome, because a lot of the stuff that you do, I really appreciate, because I think it's something that's kind of missing in the field right now.
Yeah, I lift personally every day. I actually, I don't talk about it. I've literally not worked out twice this year, literally. So as much as I work out, this is just to make a point, I don't do anything that crazy fancy. It's all simple. The most complex thing that I do is I undulate rep schemes. I add some speed eccentrics and manipulate some tempos, but it's only to get some adaptations from different forces and, managing stress and that type of thing. But it's the same. I from somebody that trains every day, and me, I've trained my whole life. I've always been that way. But even for me, I'm not doing anything outside the basics. If I had to write down the exercises I do, it's probably 16 different exercises, 17 exercises, and that's it. And everything else to me is fluff and kind of a waste of time. And if you can't measure it or you can't repeat it, it's not worth really doing. So going back to the athletes or anybody you work with, I've worked with professional athletes. They don't need anything. Just give them, some very simple, whether it's a beginner, give them, it's more about the progressions. You just take them through. I think the missing key is keeping it to where you have progression. I'm not sure people know how to do that. So, whether it's a linear progression, an undulated progression, or whatever, it's the coach's job to make sure you can objectively see progress from last week to last month to next month and the one after. You should be able to see that on paper. And if you can't see it, then we're just kind of either guessing or we don't really know what we're doing. We're trying to hide that with some fancy or some kind of exercise or name of some program that's really all it is. And you're never going to win that battle, because perception is reality. You're never going to win. I think there's a level of knowing that is so far above what most people know. There's too much distance. It's too far apart. That perception's going to win most battles, but I think the best of the best in physical performances, athletes. This is just a tool. That's the other thing. This is just a very small aspect, and I myself am a perfect example of somebody who took performance and training. It took over everything, and I did not achieve my sport goals. I put too much time, training in the weight room, and it shouldn't be like that. A baseball player at the end of the day is a baseball player. A football player at the end of the day is a football player. You don't need to spend and have so much immersed into training. It's very simple, and you don't have to do, anything outside the box um, to get where they need to go. And I think if you do see that type of things going on, I think it's either they don't know how, they're trying to hide it, or they just want the attention because
They
there's a
want
lot
to like on Instagram. Yeah.
that, or you press the right people, you get the right title. It's
Right.
so
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Kind of the next point I want to bring up is success is pretty subjective to the individual. My version of success, or my definition of success, would be different from your definition of success. And a lot of what I see daily with, and you see it, I'm sure too, is people who are just kind of going through the motions, and not just in performance, but in everyday life. You see people on the street, or you talk to somebody, at a, at a restaurant or whatever it may be. And they're either unhappy or they don't know how to find success. So, what does success mean to you? Maybe not just in your field, but also just in general. What would a successful life look like for Jake Hicks?
I think probably the saddest thing is people don't know what they want to do. I think step one is knowing what you want to do. I think step two is making an objective goal, something reachable or tangible, and then reaching that tangible goal. I think that's the way to success. You have to identify what it is you're going to do. I don't have a exact, personally, and probably keep it general for you, but um, I don't have a clock. I got here this morning around 8 o'clock. Oh no, actually, yeah, I got here around 8 o'clock. Um, I don't want to go home. I don't need to go home. I brought food. Like, this is what I want to do. I've got some goals, some things I'd like to accomplish, and um, especially training wise, you only have a certain amount of time for a training life. You got to, at some point down the road, it'll come down. But I'm just trying to do what I can to achieve those goals.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds like success isn't necessarily like an end thing. It's a continuous. It goes along a continuum. So you continue to move forward, and you continue to do different things that push you, and it's your goals are always changing. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I personally have some specific goals, um, and they're big picture goals, but it's a bigger vision, and there's a reason, that I don't look at the clock, and there's a reason that I train every day. It's not because I care what anybody else thinks. It's something. It's an agenda. It's something I care about, and um, I see worth putting my time in and doing. So
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about somebody who's really prevalent in the field, which is Brett Bartholomew, and he's somebody that I personally really look up to as well. Um, and he gave you a huge piece of advice. But other than that, is there another piece of advice that you've ever received that was really valuable to you that you've carried throughout your entire life?
um, I can't really say something sticking out on that specific. Let me think for a second.
No problem. You've met a million people, so it's kind of tough.
I'd say it's just, I really believe in, my dad always taught me do what makes you happy and everything. I do believe in that. I believe, I think if you could truly do what you want to do and really become a master at it, I think that's what I would suggest for anybody, is to follow that and don't let other things dictate your decisions, and get involved and kind of deter what you really want to do. You only have one life, and I wouldn't do anything that I really deep down didn't have my heart into, type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then the last question I didn't tell you about this one, so this was going to catch you off guard. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Who is the best musical artist of all time, in your opinion? And I know I can guess this one, but I want to hear you say it first. Because I did live with you. So I know what you listen to.
Sammy Kershaw's up there.
Yep.
Dwight Yoakam's up there.
See, that was going to be my guess. It was Dwight Yoakam.
There's a picture of Dwight Yoakam in my bedroom, literally.
Oh my gosh.
Dwight Yoakam fan. I'm a huge country singer. Jason Aldean's not country, so we can go there. Florida Georgia Line's not country.
Nope.
All that's not country. I like I said, Sammy Kershaw's up there at the top. That's my type of music. George Jones is a little, it's not my style either, but somewhere in the middle around, some good Alan Jackson, old school. Toby Keith, not new school, old school, stuff like that. So
very nice. Yeah. See, I was gonna guess Dwight, and I'm honestly I guarantee 90% of the people that are listening to this won't even know who the heck that is, but no. I do. Yeah. And I actually knew who it was before I met you, so I'm really proud of that.
Yeah. I saw a concert here in Oklahoma a couple years ago.
Very nice. Very nice.
Looks the same.
So, where can people find you on social media, Jake?
Instagram, coach_swole. And a little background on that, I didn't really have a social media. An athlete kind of suggested it one day. You don't have one? Man, you need to get one, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. He called me Big Swole. That's what he called me. It wasn't available. We tried Coach Swole. That's literally how it happened. But I just had somebody text me today. I don't know the number. Hey, is this Coach Swole? It stuck, and I really have not been able to get rid of it. I've tried to get rid of it. I don't love it. I don't, especially for people who don't know me, it comes off wrong. But it's just going to be stick. My athletes call me that. Regular people call me that. I saw a kid in the store. He come up to me. He said, "Hey, are you Coach Swole?" I'm not. I couldn't make it up. It's unreal. It's and I'm not. I'm not saying I'm fake. I just, I'll post some stuff. Some of it's controversial. Some of it, whatever. I speak my mind. It's basically a journal. I go through my own personal posts to kind of refresh thoughts and things. It's usually posting when I'm in training. So one more thing I'll add. The thing that surprised me about this field is I kind of thought when I got into this field, I really thought other people were out there trying to push performance, and that jargon is out there all the time. We're trying to push human performance, and I don't see it. I don't see much past a title and some attention. I have a personal agenda, and I trained from a very young age, and I told you the training took over my sport, and I lost out on my sport. So the goal was always to get to that professional level without unethical methods.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there as a young kid and saw a couple specifically, and I made it a point. I counted on my fingers at the time, like 9 years, train hard, and I can do what he's doing without using unethical means. So the problem was, I said I had 9 years. I counted 9 years. This took me probably 14 years to figure it out. And, you can't really read it and just, oh, I got it now. It's deeper than that. And, it's simple, but if nobody's teaching it, nobody's ever going to know it. And one of my goals is to cut somebody the hassle, of trying to figure it out themselves and trying to get, some education out there for, in big picture, hopefully turn, away from that road. And I think, you can kind of change that culture ultimately is what I would like to do. And, I try to represent something that's, achievable and admirable. And I provide context and validity. And that's really my goals. I coach every day, work with people. I don't see myself training athletes. I see people. Everybody's a person before they're an athlete or professional or adult, whatever, youth. They're all people. And I think the art has been lost. I don't think there's many people out there that actually know what they're talking about. So I just want to kind of keep, every opportunity I get to teach or get in front of somebody, impact somebody. That's kind of my goal, and that's what really drives me. But, I appreciate the time having me on, and hopefully, people have valued the podcast. And like I said, I'm active on Instagram at coach_swole. And I appreciate the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I couldn't agree with you more, man. It's, and that's something that we're trying to do at Arete is simply change that culture, not just performance wise, but in general, and in, pushing people to be more and to be leaders. And that's, like I said, that's why I wanted to bring you on, is because you're a strong voice and you're a huge leader in your specific field. So, dude, I appreciate it so much. It was great talking to you. Just to wrap that up, make sure that you're following Arete Sports Performance on Instagram at arete.sports.performance. And then go ahead and give us a like on Facebook as well for daily content, whether it be nutrition or performance. And like I said earlier, make sure if you're in the contest that you're getting in your pictures and all your information tomorrow, as tomorrow is the last day of the free trial. So, Jake, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. We'll have to have you on again. You're an awesome guest, so I really appreciate it, man.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yep, we'll see you.